Salibona nimthwakazo omuhle sesibuyile futhi njalo le podcast extra akusiye le normally sibuya sizoxoxa nje nga anything and everything namhlanje sithina sizoxoxa ngodaba olusegudwini indaba yobukhosi basibiza kuthiwa thina singama commoner right kodwa yithi esidinga ukuhola xa singelawo ubuholi siyalahleka so sithina namhlanje sizoxoxa ngayo le ndaba igcwele inkundleni zokuxhumana omunye uthi omunye athi kodwa thina sithe sicela iqiniso sicela ama-facts mfowethu kunjani
ngiyaphila Jofi Mthombi uyaphila lapho khona igama uMC Moshaba umfana wesasiqholweni zasejwane njengoba ngihlala ngisitsho uGrace 7 okaJabu uJabu kasayijeni sihlanganisa umqhekezo kaStali phansi kwana leBhula ka2 leBhula ka2 etsholotsho yezikholo sithanda ngepodcast yabantu basithaga lapha nabathi kulodaba olunje manje kanti inkosi wahlaba umdolomba lapha uCharlie wendolwane wathi isizwe esingelayo inkosi silahlekile siyabufuna ubuholi siyayifuna inkosi kodwa ke singasayendlelanga kahle both sides zabamba ngapha la ngapha wasokuvela ukuthi okuyiqiniso yilokho ngoba phela isikhathi side so obviously we expect ukuthi sometimes information ingaphumi kahle so kumele ihambe idingwa lapha sizama ukuthi sitholisise kahle ukuthi information eyiyo yipi kwenzela lapsasa igeneration elandelayo ingazizoli kakhulu ngokuthi saphambanisa sesiphambanisa singasangawatshela ulwazi lokuthi basuke ngathi bayengani bazaba bathi ureference back bethi kwaba le podcast extra podcast yabantu uncomfortable to channel yake yakubeka layo yaza lesinye isiqephu se-episode esasibamba kahle sichaza ukuthi kwenzakalani sifaka ama-facts egudwini namhlanje kunzima-ke
sithi thina
ngizobantu lokhu bathembisa exclusive
yes kade ngibatshela abanye bamfonela nase-UK sithi thina nxa kuzobekwa inkosi kuthiwa kuba le process
yebo
abantu abaningi abangayaziyo o abangakaze bebe lolwazi ukuthi kusuka kutheni so namhlanje siphathele lapha osaziwayo othe yena uzosibekela le process ukuthi waqala ngaphi wafika ngaphi singaphi khathesi
why wakhethwa owayekhethiwe
yes
iPrince Ubulelani
yes
ekhethe njani ekhethelweni ekhethwe ngubani
yebo
wenzakala ukwenza singawandlela lokho uzaba ngumlando ke kithi isizwe sibe kwazi iqiniso ukuthi okuyikho kwini sithanda ukubingelela lapha ubaba uCoronation Ndlovu sithi linjani mfoka Mlevu Ndembe uyaphila sicela ukubingelela abantu emakhaya uzitsho ukuthi ngubani njani
ngibuyise emakhaya mina igama ngiCoronation Ndlovu I've done a lot of work around the Ndebele Kingship, a lot of research work, field work. Sesenze nje umsebenzi omningi, sometimes ngama-teams, sometimes individually, sometimes in different guises. So sesenze umsebenzi omningi over the years. Yeah, nenhlelo nje ezakithi zasesindebeleni uyasithola lapho kaningi. Yes. Yabo.
So thina namhlanje size la sibonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho. Sicela sithathe sikhe from ngaphansi ngoba ngathi manje khiwa phezulu kakhulu.
Khona kumele sikusho Jofu ukuthi yazi kuba buhlungu ngoba ungacabanga ukuthi sithwale nzima kanjani ukuthi sisicela ubaba uNdlovu ukuthi aze asinikeze leli thuba lokuthi simvakatshele azo share any knowledge alayo ngalolu daba le-kingship ngenxa yokuthi abantu bakithi maybe they use emotions and judgmental bayashesha abantu bakithi bechothoze lolo lwazi ngasafuni lo lwazi lwakhe because esesaba ukuthi ngathi kuyadwa mina sengithe ngizondo umhlaba so abantu bakithi sometimes asisifundiseni ukulalela siscrutinize ama-facts hayi umuntu because siyathanda ukuscrutinize umuntu instead of scrutinize into ayitshilo which is ama-facts asetafuleni so sinikezelelaneni ngokuthi inkosi anti ngethu sathi la siyipodcast yabantu ukuthi sigijime sibone singadobha kuphi lapha so ubaba uNdlovu sisithi hayi after some time lokhu sincenga baba uJofu lapha sithi baba uNdlovu siyacela baba uNdlovu siyakwazi wena ukuthi into ezinde nawe ukwasebenza kakhulu sesakubona ko-Kings likazi day uyisungula lento ugijima kakhulu empilweni zakhe eziningi kakhulu kakhulu and uhambe even uzuhambe nalo mntwana ubulelani and usebenzisana. There was a time whereby bekumele siyenze Coronation. He was very vital. He played a very pivotal role, important critical role. Sabubona konoko. So angese sizwe ngile gama lakhe la mention umbali omkhulu uAmaNdebele uthi hayi ngathi nami sokunzima ngaceleza ngithi ezizincane. So you could see these are very important people. Would get to create Ndebele Kingship without having to find these people,
and
talk to them, see on their side what do they have for the nation and for us.
Babundlovu sizohamba the Ndebele Kingship in background. Outline usibekele nje ukuthi uqala ngaphi singaphi sikuphi lapho siyakhona.
Ngiyabonga baba uNcube. Yes. Ngibonga baba uMpofu. Uhlelo lwenu luhle siyalujabulela.
Yes.
Ngoba luyakha isizwe. Yes. Sithi sithathe kanje ke Ndebele Kingship background. Ngoba yonke into kufanele iqale emuva.
Yes.
Isiya phambili.
Yes.
Right. A few days ago, umntwana umphikeleli engangezwe Khumalo made reference to indoda engisozwayo, saziwayo kwezo science. Albert Einstein. Indoda nami ngithanda kakhulu engihlonipha njengomuntu oyenza a lot of research. As you know, I've written extensively in the field of finance and economics. So Albert Einstein indoda nami engihlonipha kakhulu. Right, uthi yena Albert Einstein, two things are infinite.
Okay.
The universe and human stupidity.
Okay.
Right. Thina njengesizwe samaNdebele, we don't want to find ourselves within a stupidity part.
Yes.
That is what causes some of us to stand up. Simele isizwe sethu singene ku field works, research, get to the bottom of things and understand ukuthi kwenzakalani. We continue Einstein through his famous equation. E is equal to mc squared. That is his theory of special relativity. This formula has a bearing on us njengesizwe samaNdebele.
Okay.
The equation then nothing gets lost in space. Things merely get converted from one state to another. Nothing gets lost. Ubukhosi wethu ngeke ulahleke.
Okay.
In line with the E is equal to mc squared equation. Right. The equation itself is related to energy, mass, velocity, equivalence. Right? Energy, mass, velocity. Velocity is just a conversion factor which converts mass into energy.
Okay.
Right? Kingship, it's energy, it's spiritual. It does not go away.
Yes.
It's permanent.
Yes.
It's here to ingahlala 150 years, 100 years ingekho. But we will revive it.
Okay.
So that is why I admire this man, Albert Einstein, through his equation. Nothing gets lost in space. Kingship is like energy. It is spiritual, as I've already said. It derives the power from the people, from the masses. Energy that the king enjoys. The more the people, the more the power of the king. The more the masses. Kanti inkosi enomuntu oyi-one ipower yakhe incane mpofu. Inkosi enabantu abaningi, the power is big. E is equal to mc squared. There you have it. That's Einstein. Indoda esiyihloniphayo.
Yes.
Right, siya continue. In our research, we look at different fields. Siyabheka nakweze economics. I've written very extensively on economics myself. Siyabona amadoda afana nabo Keynes or John Maynard Keynes. Usually, when someone engages on research or a theory, it's usually a reaction to a problem that has arisen in a community. So Einstein was distinct. Asibheke abanye amadoda afana nabo John Maynard Keynes. There was a Great Depression in 1929 to 1933, economic depression.
Yes.
That's when he came up with the Keynesian economic revolution. He introduced the Keynesian economics, or GDP, aggregate demand, where we look at the economy as a whole, not individual. Because if you look at things at an individual level, what is true of one is not true of the whole.
Yes. So,
just because one individual is successful does not mean the whole community is successful.
True.
So he brought the aggregate, that whole aggregation of things. Right, it's a reaction to a problem. So there was a Great Depression, then we saw Keynesian economics. In other fields, good technology, technology is driven by the same phenomenon. Sibona laphana indoda yase-Harvard University abadingi Joseph Schumpeter owe-theory of creative destruction.
Yes.
Iyo esithi nowadays disruptive industries.
Yes.
Where you replace old and inefficient things by new ones.
Yes.
Siyayibona ku-technology.
Njengoba manje i-podcast yabantu isireplace ku-TV.
As i-podcast yabantu. Because TV is gone. Sesine-color TV.
Yes.
Etc. Now, all these things, they influence us in terms of decision making. Masibheka indaba yobukhosi. Nizobona ukuthi how do all these factors fit into the picture. Now, religion, we look into it. Kulama French philosophers, laphana fana nabo Blaise Pascal, or famous for what you call Pascal's wager. In our case, it's better to have a king than not to have one. The king unites the nation. As a nation that doesn't have a king is divided on political factions, etc. Yes, tribalism, etc. But with the king, everybody unites. Cut across party political lines. Now, these are some of the influences that have influenced us. Right. Beyond that, we've conducted academics directly and indirectly. Abafana nabo Professor Ken Rasmussen, University of California. Ken Rasmussen wrote extensively about the Ndebele history. He wrote The Migrant Kingdom, one of his most famous books. Very detailed, very authoritative, The Migrant Kingdom. He's also a biographer of King Mzrias. Yes, I had email correspondence with him. If we go to our file, we can see that correspondence here.
Oh, yes.
Dear Mr. Love, Ken Rasmussen.
Okay, this was 2019.
This was 2019.
Oh, okay.
You might be interested to know, I also have a mostly finished, annotated bibliography of
the 19th century
Ndebele history.
Wow.
I set it aside more than 30 years ago, but it would be good to finish it and publish it.
Yes.
It contains a great deal of information not published in any book.
Yes.
Wow. I've recently been thinking about reissuing Migrant Kingdom as an e-book, or perhaps a print-on-demand volume. Here is one of the cover designs I've been toying with.
There is a cover design. Migrant Kingdom. Ken Rasmussen. Yes. Ken Rasmussen.
My podcast, Yamahle.
He's at the University of California in the US. He specializes on Ndebele history. So he's one of the researchers
That
we corresponded with regarding this issue of the Ndebele Kingdom. Right.
Okay.
We continue here. We conducted Professor Ray Roberts indirectly. Professor Ray Roberts is a professor of history at the University of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
He wrote extensively about the Ndebele royal family, with special reference to the Lobengula and Jube households. Yes, Professor Ray Roberts. Yes, he's a very authoritative guy. If you go to B, our reference B, there is defining research that he did.
Yes.
He presented on a topic called The End of the Ndebele Royal Family.
Yes, history seminar.
This was 1988.
Paper number 73, April 1988,
Right.
by Professor R.S. Roberts,
R.S.
History Department, University of Zimbabwe.
Right, there you have it. He says the history of Albert and Rhodes Lobengula
Yes.
Okay.
Just a preface to his work. According to the Ndebele custom,
What sifunde ngaba ngisingabona ngathi ufunde maybe into engayisiyo.
yes, mawungayifunda uyigcine nje lapha.
Okay.
Yeah, izoba easy.
Okay. Ithi yona, according to the Ndebele custom of kingship succession, Prince Njube of King Lobengula was the heir to the throne. He gave birth to 3 sons, Prince Albert Sonisu, Prince Rhodes Mpango, and Prince Ndebele.
Siyabonga. So then we contacted him, we collected his works because he specialized on the Ndebele royal family.
Yes.
He is authoritative, and by his own admission, he says Prince Njube was the heir within the King of Bengula household.
Okay.
Right? So we get some information regarding this issue as we move forward.
Yes.
We conducted Professor Julian Copping. I personally spoke to him. He was at the Rhodes University,
Okay.
formerly at Lancaster University.
Okay.
His PhD thesis was the Ndebeles under the Kumalos. So he wrote very defining work. He did some very defining work on the Ndebele under the Kumalos. Ngathinta ubaba umfowethu uProfessor Samuel Kachenito. Umkhaya. He's currently at the top university in Germany. His PhD thesis was on the Ndebele history. Sathinta ubaba uProfessor Mishek Machaz. At the time, he was at Fort Hare University. Right. Professor Machaz will feature again, but he wrote a very good book called Umchwagas.
Okay.
Yes. Now, research. Why research? Why research? Why research?
Ngoba manje la nxasihleli lapho omunye ethi why are we talking about this? And then now sesibuyela kuma researchers lapho kwakulo ukuthi why the research? What's kutheni kuzobuyela research?
In about 2008, we started the King Mzilika's Day celebrations in South Africa.
Okay.
Simasibheka sabona ukuthi isizwe samaNdebele siyashabalala. Abantu abethu bazangena nje kwezinye izizwe kugcine kungana uniting factor.
Yes.
So we started the King Mzilika's Day celebrations, which will bring everybody together across party political divides.
Yes.
Lo msebenzi sawenza kahle.
Yes.
Sawuqala ePoisons Hotel. In about 2009, a school in the Eastern Cape, Gosforth Secondary School,
Yes.
they were doing a research on the Lobengulas and the Ndebele Kingship. It came to my attention that a school in the Eastern Cape, a high school, is doing research on our history, on our kingship.
Yeah.
Tina Senzan.
Yes.
What are we doing? Babumpo. So all the questions that they fielded, I took it upon myself. I phoned them, I contacted them, in terms of answering these questions.
Yes.
In terms of how did the Lobengulas end up in Eastern Cape, in Grahamstown. So the people that participated on that research, it was myself and Umda, Usizwe Mda,
Yes.
or Ozara Mundluku,
Yes.
Abaning Bayamaz. And I contributed. And then Mzilika's Cultural Association contacted me regarding the King Mzilika's celebration.
Yes.
Now, bacela ukuthi participate. But no, uhlelo lolu soluqalele isizwe. So if ama-groups ofana the King Mzilika's Cultural Association are coming forward, that is precisely what we want. So sabanikeza ukuthi hayi they can be part and parcel of the process. Bacela ukuthi siwumove from the poisons sibulethe ebantwini lapha eBerlin sawenzela lapho ngoba babumpofu. Now we participate from there on up until today.
I think these are the years where we saw people now starting to come out begqoke into ezifana nomqhele, things that represented us, izikippa zabomzilikazi, iziprinto. Because if we can vividly say, remember, we can say before these years, it was not common ukubona abantu bakithi maybe behamba beziqhenya ngoyibo babo. Uthola begqoke izikippa zamzilikazi uyimqhele lesikolo.
Uyishaya ekhanda. When we started the King Mzilikazi celebrations, we saw an upsurge, abantu coming forward, beziqhenya, sebefaka imqhele, befaka amabheshu, sebe-embrace ubuntu babo. And that was very progressive. So uhlelo lolwana it worked in terms of uniting abantu. Yes. And then we started a fully fledged research work on who should be crowned a king of the Ndebele nation, because inhlelo zonke lezi ezifana nencwala, ama-celebrations, they need a king.
Yes.
Who presides over the king? Absolutely. Yeah, so we started the research. Also inspired by these children. I was saying school. We are doing research on ourselves. We are sitting back, when will they give us a toll? If Tina Umpara is dead, absolutely right. See a background in the Ndebele Kingship. As if we are the arrival of the Ndebele nation in present day Ndebele, 1837. For security reasons, we know that Malesuka in South Africa is split into two groups. Enye ahamba ilidwa ukundwa nendiweni, unduna, enye alidwa umzilikazi. Leka ndiweni ihambe straight nje vaya kuTswana. Bafika ke ngokusheshsha. Umzilikazi ihambe vaya aboZambezi, oZambia. Yathatha iminyaka ukuthi ifike. And then Prince Ngulumane was installed as a king in 1837. Wabusa up until 1838. Umzilikazi akafiki.
Yes.
Abantu babona ukuthi nosezizweni lapha ufika efika head of the king. Inkosi umzilikazi asiyibona. Bamgcoka umntwana uNkulunkulu. Wabusa from 1837 to 1839, 1840. Awufika inkosi umzilikazi. Right, we saw a very interesting phenomenon. When King Mzilikazi arrived, Nkulunkulu abdicated. Whether Stanley, who is Tata over.
Wayibambe okwesikhatshana uyisengakafiki.
Why is it Tochi?
Look, you could have said sengiphethe lapha.
Yes, one Tochi.
Ula lapha zatshela abafana bekwenze kubi. Kodwa ke wathi no. Umnikazi wehlalo sesewile. Wa-abdicate wehlalweni. So that's a very critical event that happened in the case of the Ndebele nation. Right. Under cover of darkness, uNkulunkulu wathunyelwa secretly back to South Africa. Accompanied by izinduna ezazimbeke ubukhosi. Izinduna ezifana noGundwa neNdiweni. uMagalane Dlodlo, uMkhabakaba Mkhwanazi, uDolo Mafu, Dambisa Makubo Mafu, lenye induna yakwaSwela. Right, izinduna zafika naye ephukeni. In about 1840, abafika beqhuba umntwana uNkulunkulu.
I remember Ephukeni, we once celebrated the King Mzilikazi Day, and those people, they identify themselves as AmaNdebele.
Yes.
They have in monuments, even the signs, Bakomba, Mzilikazi. Esezindlini, yathola kubhaliwe Mzilikazi.
Ephukeni, igama la elidala bathi bekuyiNkulumane Park. Izwa afuNkulunkulu. Siyadlula ke lapho. City fast forward to the death of King Mzilikazi in 1868.
Yes.
After 2 years of search for Nkulunkulu, bayasearcha because bayazi ukuthi abulawanga into abaziduna. Njengoba uSomanga sebesho ukho South Africa. So basearcha from 1868, 69, 70 emfundo. Thumela amaqhuba abantu.
Because he was the rightful heir.
He was
supposed to take off after the death of Mzilikazi.
Yes. And then kwathi ngo-1870 inkosi uLobhengula yasibekwa ke esihlalweni. Naye wabekwa ngomthetho ngoba uNkulumane engatholakala. Yes. Between 1868 to 1870 bekunebamba Umbatha Khumalo.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
He
He was a regent.
Yes.
Yes. So bathe mabebeka inkosi uLobhengula, there was an outbreak of a civil war in 1870.
Okay.
Qale umbiko Masuku.
Bama
Akazange ndaba. Uyala ukuthi kubeke uLobhengula umbiko ukuthi umkhulumani adinga khona akazathola. Yes. So kwaba-ke ne-disagreement agcina kune civil war siyadlula lapho. Yeah. Then siyayidlula futhi sikhamba nayo sithi Ndebele War of 1893, the death of King Lobhengula, wena abanye bathi wanyamalala from the research and
sizabanye bethu bashona eZambia.
yes siyazi ukuthi hayi
Battle of Pullup
inkosi yethu
eKotani.
Yes, we know that. We've done some work around that issue. Yes, there is an argument that Wanyamala. I will respect it. Yes. Then Cecil John Rhodes abducts the king, the children of the king. Princes Umpezeli, Njube, Longo Enja. Not Ungo Enja.
No. So wrong about Ungo Enja. Okay.
Not in
interesting.
Yes, we need to correct our history.
Yes. Sabiko umlando vele kumalita zethu.
Yes.
Both kuba communities esihlala ukuthi namanje sibe sisazi iqiniso kodwa sisabe izindawo zakithi ngendlela ezingasizo. Ngowenja sikwazi ukuthi hayi igama lelo nguNgo Enja. We've seen it in South Africa happening when I talk ukuthi names get corrected.
Yes.
If they are spelled, they find the rightful names.
Yes.
Which I think is something that needs to be done materially.
So they were taken to the camp. And then the Ndebele group. Now we come to the gist of the matter now. The Ndebele kingdom. Who should be crowned king?
All right.
Remember, this is a build up towards umsebenzi wesi now as researcher ukuthi nampu ukhosi Ndebele. We are happy. In about 2012, I wrote an article with that title, Ndebele Kingdom, who should be crowned king. Iphumile nje endaweni eziningi kuma platforms, Bulawayo 24 and others. Ikhona ikusi article yakhona sinayo laphana. Ndebele Kingdom, who should be crowned king, 19 June 2012.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You get about 5,271 views.
Yes, there you have it. See, to coincide with the British Queen's 60-year uninterrupted reign, they were celebrating that.
Okay.
So, that is a who should be our king? This article, it outlines all the key factors. Ithatha izinto zonke eziningi izifake lapha izidingide phakathi kwazo. Yes,
sisazongena kuzo izindlu.
Sisazongena kuzo izindlu. Ngifuna ukuthi ngigxile kuyo ngoba kudocumente isikhathi, but it's quite detailed.
Okay.
Right. Siyadlula laphana. But I should point out that the consensus and the spotlight fell on the Njube household. Simbonile uRobert ethi the heir to the Ndebele kingship was uNjube.
Yes.
Uye inkosana okwakufanele athathe ubukhosi.
Yeah.
Right. Nathi ke spotlight fell on the Njube household. Masithi sibheke leyo, it does not mean ezinye izindlu azibhekwanga. Sibhekiwe. But asifuni ukuzinqunula emphakathini singabantu.
Right.
You focus lapho ilight eliyakho. Right. Three princes under uRhodes abazalwa uNjube. uRhodes Mpango Lobhengula, Albert Soniso Lobhengula, and Ndabecala Lobhengula. So uNjube had 3 sons, not 2, as most people allege.
Yes.
Bekuno Rhodes, Albert, Ndabecala.
Okay.
Right, siyadlula ke lapho nawe mpofu. Why Rhodes Mpango Lobhengula? Right, this is very critical.
Yes.
Professor Roberts, nabanye mabebheka na presentation yakhe naye and others baqala ngoRhodes Mpango Lobhengula
and his family.
nokho lakho kusikhomba eyabe direction sizokubona why right ngithathe the works of the academics cited above were critically in influencing our research. In particular, Professor R.S. Roberts, the professor of history at the University of Zimbabwe, was fundamental. Rhodes had arrived in Ndebele in the 1920s, and it was him who first introduced football and boxing in Ndebele. There is reference to that effect. In 1926, alongside his brother, they formed Highlanders Football Club.
All right.
The Ndebele chiefs started returning all the king's cake to him. Bathatha inkomo zenkosi bezilophawu. Ebezisezinduneni. Bazinikeza uRhodes. Abazinikezanga any other person.
They chose to give them.
Inkosi uLobhengula labantwana abaningi labantwana bomntwana. But babezinikeza uRhodes. Right. In effect, they started treating him as a de facto king, as a king, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Right. Ma izinduna zenza kanjalo zitreata uRhodes in that fashion. The Rhodesian government started accusing him of trumped up charges. As a ploy to find him guilty and banish him from Ndebele. Rhodes was hounded before the courts. In 1932, they banished him from Ndebele altogether. 1932.
What was his charge?
Trumped up charges. Or as a ploy to find him guilty. Yabona nje ama charges angamanga. That's what they were doing.
Were they fearing that he had become a de facto king?
Bebesesaba the fact that the izinduna besescoalesce around him.
And kumlando wezinduna futhi.
Kumlando wezinduna. Yes, ama organizations akhona amanye ama organizations afana labo Ndebele and Home Society.
Yes.
They were now working around him.
So they've seen a de facto leader in
de facto king.
Yes.
That is what was happening. Now, the government yaqala ke accused of trumped up charges as a ploy to find him guilty and punish him from Ndebele.
All right.
Rhodes was hounded before the courts. In 1932, they banished him from Ndebele, as I've already said. Initially, they tried to send him to Natal.
Okay.
But the native commissioner in Natal refused, arguing that royal issues were very strong in KwaZulu.
So
he was yes, bala ke bathi no ngale uzaqeqeshwa aqine
indaba
zobukhosi ademand even more ukuhlangana lezinduna zakhe. So he was taken to the Eastern Cape instead, away from Zululand.
Yes.
Right. The Rhodesian government, through its prime minister, Howard Moffat, asserted that they were happy in courts to see the back of this young man. I'm quoting them now.
Yes.
They were happy as a government to see the back of this young man. Abanye bonke basele Ndebele.
Yes.
Kuyadliwa.
Abanye abantwana bakhona. Yes. But this one,
we are happy as a government to see the back of this young man.
We don't mind these other ones.
Yes.
But this
there
one.
Is reference to that effect. Yes. So continue. In South Africa, Rhodes acquired a farm, but the Rhodesian government took ownership of the title deed as a ploy to forcibly keep him in the Cape. Title deed by Tata by Beke Sosville. Bathi uhlale ngapho benzela nokuthi angakhoni nokuthengisa iplaza lakhe noma yenze anything
angabi le power
whatever he wants to do movement yakwazi ayicontrola
yeah.
So someone was being tamed time and again.
Yes, so they took possession of ilentozana title deed. Right. Rhodes proposed to come to Ndebele at least once a year, but this was declined by the Rhodesian government.
You will not
La, Matlanders were happy to see the back of this young man. How to Abuya load. Abanye bahlele ekhaya. Bayelusa bayasela. Badlala ibhola. Yeah, no one is menacing them or harassing them.
But this character now.
The Rhodesian government forced Rhodes to sign an agreement never to return to Rhodesia, fearing that his return would lead to the resuscitation of the Ndebele kingship with him as king. This is all in writing
by Professor R.S. Roberts.
Or Professor R.S. Roberts, with cross-confirmed about Ken Rasmussen.
Yes.
Leading authorities on Ndebele history, biographers of Omsiligas, and others. Right. Ndebele cultural organizations were also lobbying vigorously for the kingship of Rhodes. In the early 20s, the Ndebele Home Society, later on in the 30s. The objective of keeping Ndebele and his sons in exile was specifically to alienate them from their Ndebelehood. Yes. That was the objective. Yes, in particular I know Rhodes because once we born Ndebele afuna ukuvusa ubukhosi ngaphansi kwakhe.
Yabantu.
Izinduna labantu. Sizobona siyaqhubeka. When he died, Rhodes, in 1937, the Ndebele people in Ndebele collected funds in subscriptions. Everyone subscribed. I contributed his money. And the Rhodesian government also contributed money for his burial and the tombstone.
Why?
Rhodes, he was buried by Yabantu bonke. I contributed his money. Over in their mindset, bekushone umuntu on a weight a king.
Because
That's why I use the word defect. As a matter of fact, to them, he was their king. Hence, we see these activities. When he died in 1937. Right. In 1952, the Ndebele Home Society, la ngama organizations ahlanganisa abantu civil society. Kube lezinduna, kube lama different structures of abantu. Amele umphakathi. In 1950, the Ndebele Home Society formally contacted Rhodes' wife. Remember, Rhodes had already died.
Yes.
So they contacted his wife, Rosamond, and his children. In courts, looking for an heir to the Ndebele throne. I'm quoting this. That's why I say what I'm putting here, these are hard facts. Facts are stubborn.
Yes. You can't erase them.
Facts are stubborn. Over time they prevail.
Yes.
So the people of Ndebele conducted Rosamond and his children looking for an heir to the Ndebele throne. In our household, Rhodes. They didn't go to anybody else.
They wanted an heir from
this prompted Rosamond to visit Bulawayo in 1958.
Oh, okay.
At the invitation of the Ndebele Home Society. Rosamond received a royal welcome at the railway station, characterized by pomp and ceremony. Where we want to figure indlovukazi yamangish.
Yes.
Abantu balayina kanjani. Ama-bands. There was a brass band. Eyayidlala music. Them welcome. There were policemen on motorcycles, among other elements as called. Welcome.
It was more of a parade.
It was a parade, yes. Mawuwabona indlovukazi yabelungu Queen Elizabeth. It was like that. And then while in Bulawayo, she visited a gravesite Albert and King Mzilikazi's grave at Ntumbane. Right. Siyadlula kancane. Asibhekeni ke ubaba Prince Albert Soni Solobheko.
Yes.
Sesibheka uRhodes. Albert was not prosecuted alongside Rhodes because the chiefs did not give him the royal cake.
And inkomo lezi ngomthetho vele ziphila inkosi. Zazenkosi lobhengu.
Yes.
Okay.
So base bezibuyisela emuntwini abafeel ukuthi Albert asserted that he wanted to get away from Ndebele land. Arguing that he wanted to look for land in Mashonaland. This is all in Professor Ray Roberts' writings and others. This is documented with proper reference. These are academic works. You can't allege. You have to put reference and quote. This is in court at his own request. He said he wanted to get away from Ndebele land, arguing that he wanted to look for land in Mashonaland. The government agreed that that was a good move for him. Oh, yes. Right, so continue. Look, this is academic. This is not my opinion.
Yes. It's written facts.
I'm dealing with hard facts.
Yes.
Which are referenceable. The references here, among other works. Right. When Albert wanted to go and stay in the Cape, the Rhodesian government refused. And he continued to work in the Native Commissioner's office in Salisbury, Harare. Albert died on 4 December 1952 in Kwatemba.
Okay.
You could have upload 65 low Colonial Quarter.
It could be.
Yes,
it could be that. Yes. So I continue on move. Right. In 1997, just fast forward, I guess.
Yes.
1997, siyazi ukuthi the Khumalos, they set up a research committee of their own, which was a very progressive step. Because it was part of the effort towards finding
and reviving
kingship. Yes. So that's 1997. It was chaired by Ubaba Udon Khumalo, by his own mission recently. Yes, I've worked with Ubaba Khumalo Udon for many years on many projects. I've worked with him at Solusi University researching the arrival of the SDA Church, their receipt, how they were received by Omkhulubani, Ondov. And behamba nabo luthuli John Daba luthuli yes obaba babo Chief Albert luthuli baleke Solusi mission we did field work mina no baba Khumalo no Machazi
Professor Machazi
Undumiso was America we did field work on that issue. Later on, we were joined by the Luthuli family. Sawenza umsebenzi wakhona sawuqeda nisebenza nawo Udon Khumalo indoda engisebenza nayo kakhulu mazi nawe uyangasakhulu impela right. So the Khumalo set up a research committee in 1997 yenza umsebenzi wayo nayo which we all respect. Thina we are realists abantu esikhonza amakhosi akithi. And then, but parallel to that, we can't sit back. Abantwana goes forth, they are doing research on our kingship. Thina sihleli sithi hayi amakhumalo azosiletela ithole. When izosiletela ithole?
Hundreds and hundreds of years.
From 1997, sasukuma ke nathi. Sathi let's get out. Siye kutshwala.
And be involved.
Yes. Research by ordinary people of Ndebele. That is where we come in. There was a groundswell of the need for a figurehead of a king to unite the people.
Yes.
There was a groundswell, imperative. Good knows. It's feeling cause. We then formed the Inkosi Lobhengula group, which had over 250 members of the general public, inclusive of academics, historians, professionals, business people, cultural activists, artists, you name them. Akekho umuntu obengekho lapho. Bekunabantu abaningi abumpofu. That was now in about 2016. Sasebenza ke sadingida ukuthi ubukhosi kanjani laba ubukhosi benkosi uLobhengula buyaphi. And then the outcome of that group, we were doing field work, dingida sikucwaninge kuphikiswane kuthini sibheke inhlangothi eziningi mayelana ngobukhosi wakhe. There were 250 group okuthiwa inkosi uLobhengula yafonywa yithi labo bakuMagonya labo bakoNcube labo bako George Mkhwanazi and others. Right. The outcome of that process was a document called the Bulawayo Declaration on the Restoration of the Ndebele King on 26 July 2017. Because I would Column 7. That draft a document.
Bulawayo Declaration, which outlined the process followed in the research and who was involved, etc., etc., and what was done. Ikhona le documents nayo la ikhona bakumpofu the Bulawayo on the restoration of the Ndlovukazi monarchy 3 August 2017.
3 August 2017.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, outline everything. For the purpose of time, I won't go into the finer details.
Yeah, but if you can summarize.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yasho nje ukuthi kwenziwe bani izinduna we central, because what we said
where izinduna involved in this,
right, abantu ngabezinduna.
Okay.
Inkosi kusabantu through izinduna.
Yes.
So all of us belong to izinduna. From KwaZulu to Matabeleland abantu belong to izinduna.
Yes.
So wonke umsebenzi siwenzayo ama custodians wow izinduna abanikazi bomsebenzi nazo zazikhona ke ezinye khona lapha kule group.
Zazingaphi lapha?
Hayi bezikhona besizifakile impela bebekhona bezikhona nje induna ezithile. I don't want to misquote maybe ngicamba amagama but bezikhona.
Okay.
But anyway umsebenzi awuthatha ke zawethula kizo izinduna. Izinduna as an outcome of this process zayafoma ke lento okuthiwa i-Royal Crown Council. Sizayibona ke masiluke sisehla siyale ngele umsebenzi.
Zisebenza laphezu kweBulawayo Declaration.
Bulawayo Declaration which outlined what was done.
Was it recommendation yeBulawayo Declaration to form i-Royal Crown Council?
I-Royal Crown Council was formed as a reaction.
Okay.
Ukuthi nje abantu abethu sebenzelana.
Okay.
Senzani.
We take
Going
over.
forward.
Okay.
How do we manage? How do we take custody of umsebenzi yonke le? Yes, right.
But on the Bulawayo Declaration, work was thorough.
Very thorough. It's you need to read the document.
Yes.
It's facts.
It's facts, hard facts.
I think there will be an episode where we just share the document.
Look into the
document on the spot.
Yes. Then the Bulawayo Declaration, we've dealt with the Bulawayo Declaration on the restoration of the Ndebele King. Okay, it outside that
formation Royal Crown Council.
Now, the effect or the end result of that document was the press statement from the Royal House of the Kumalos, AmaNdebele, on the restoration of the Ndebele Kingship on 19 August 2017, where umsebenzi lo senziwe ngumphakathi wapresentwe wanikeza izinduna wanikezwa AmaNdebele iqoqo uyabona le group okuthiwa iqoqo labadala bayinikezwa bahlanganisa nayo i-research abayenzayo ngaphakathi.
Babele research already laba
mentioned it eqale ngo-97.
Okay.
As interfere with it.
Okay.
Sathi le ngabantwana benkosi
senze outside
ngendlela yabo thina senze yethu.
But do you have an idea ukuthi yayiquketheni le research ka-1997 yabo babukumalo?
Labo bedinga inkosi.
Okay.
Yes, that was the objective. I-methodology yabo as eyethu we are putting it ukuthi thina senzani.
Okay.
Sabhekani kwaba ama-academics esebenzela
Yes.
nabosolwazi esizweni samaNdebele. Right. So on 19 August they declared unequivocally that there was only one crown prince, and that was Prince Ndebele Khomalo. again it was through a formal document.
Yes.
The document yakhona sinayo la in detail.
Are we still going to get to why Prince Bulelani?
Yes.
Okay.
Siyeza lapho. Press statement from the Royal House of Kumalos
AmaNdebele.
on the restoration of Ndebele.
These are the Kumalos.
These are the Kumalos. When the day they announced,
Where was this announced?
this was announced in Bulawayo.
Okay.
Emzini wakwaKhumalo. Okamama uMakhumalo uLesabe.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Kwa-announced lapho. Ama-radio Zimbabwe babekhona.
Who announced?
Wayekhona uXaba. Nabanye. After that statement, this was done emzini kamama uThendweni Sabo Makhumalo
Okay.
in Bulawayo. Organizations welcomed the announcement. The Zimbabwean government issued a statement through its then spokesman, Ukhaya Moyo, saying it does not interfere in people or communities exercising their traditional and cultural rights.
This was from the government.
This was a statement issued by the government.
Giving a green light.
Giving a green light. Zaphuma ku-Newsday, following day or a few days thereafter. So that was the official communication that came from the government. Numerous other organizations also welcomed the verdict. Ukhozi FM invited us, AmaZulu, about this. AmaNdebele, they're an offshoot of the Zulu nation. So imkhuba yethu neyakwaZulu iyafana. So ayikho into yasezizweni esiyenzayo. Konke esikwenzayo kuyahambelana nokwabo. Uhlelo lwaba lihle impela lolo. Umhlobo wenene yase-Eastern Cape nayo yasibiza. Saya nakhona. Sakhuluma nabo saba-explainela.
Kuthi le nto engaso secret.
Ikwekwezi FM yabaNdebele yasibiza. Saya khona. Skies Metro yakwaBulawayo also had programs, not one, many, featuring the Kumalos, the Royal Crown Council members, as far as Chief Matema, Ubaba Matema, Obe, they say the chairman,
Royal
Crown Council, organization is Nduna.
Kati manje yazi wena Jofi babu uNdlovu kuzo zonke lezi inhlelo lezi zasenziwa lapha likhamba khona these are very big stations fana because we play more than 7 million listeners. Kwakumention ukuthi osebonakele umntwana uBulelani.
Yes.
Nothing was a secret here.
No.
Ukuthi vele if there was an objection kwamele kuye ngaleso sikhathi ngoba this was publicized in common knowledge.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Uyibeka kahle impela. Most guys inkwenkwezi FM umhlobo wenene Ukhozi among others. Savakashela futhi inkosi zakwaKhumalo ezinye ezikhona lapha eGoli.
Okay.
Ezifana noMthayiza Khumalo
Okay.
eMpumalanga. Naye siyemkhomba ukuthi hayi ithole selitholakele. Siphumile istatement samantunga. Sihlanganiswa neresearch ezwe ngumphakathi wamaNdebele. Right. King Bulelani Bhengula, a great grandson of Rhodes. Jubelo Bhengula, obviously a great grandson of Inkosi Bhengula.
Before singile ku umntwana uBulelani la.
Yes.
Kuzo zonke lezi inhlelo lizenza. Were there any opposing voices ezazi ngathi asikhambisana nokubulawa declaration?
Ngalezo sikhathi.
Very good.
Ngaleso sikhathi.
Yeah.
Ngoba into le it was widely publicized.
Let me put it at this point.
It was
Umphakathi had bese kune consensus.
people were now happy.
Most of the people that are today around Inkosi Bulelani, abaningi they were on rival groups.
They went the opposite group.
They were rival groups before. But kuthe mase uceke ukuthi Inkosi yabaNdebele nasi. Babuya ke ngekhaya. Babuya ke ngekhaya abaningi ngeke mention abantu ngoba we are driven by facts.
Yes.
So but let me put it this way, immediately after announcement umntwana Bulelani ngasuggesta mina ukuthi akufonywe engakubiza i-reconciliation committee to reconcile umphakathi.
Okay.
In particular izindlu zamantungwa lezi bengathi zibhekana sibona indlu baba kuchuma uStanley lapha elokahlangabeza eKanyamande
ngoba kuzwide
omcijwana and others.
Yes.
Right, this is what I did. I flew from Johannesburg ngaye eMathebelele ngakwabulawayo ahlangana nobaba uZwide sahlangana eChurchill Arms Hotel sakhuluma ukuthi hayi mntwana enkosi fanele kube ne-reconciliation phakathi kwakho kwendlu yakho nomntana wakho umntwana ulelayo. Hayi wavuma impela ubaba
yena wavuma impela.
Yes, wavuma impela ubaba uKhumalo wathi hayi into enhle leyo ndlo.
Yes.
Wanginikeza indoda owathi engathi angazi ube i-assistant or i-helper yakhe abasebenza bonke emkhosini wakhe. Indoda eyi-lecturer laphana eNAST abathi ngumzeli kahle.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. uKenan wathi ayilo for uhlelo lolo lwe-reconciliation nangu umuntu ke ngiforward sebenza hayi la ngajabula impela ngambona
hayi impilo green light la
umzilikazi
kuba kuzwithe
ngathatha ke leyo ndoda ngathi hayi leyo detail mandate ngaza na ngazoyibeka ngapha emakhosini endlini enkulu emntwaneni ukuthi hayi indlu kababuzwide isisinikeze ukuthi kumele that reconciliation exercise. Angiphelelanga lapho Mpofu. Ngaya indoda le ephetha bakaMambo.
Okay.
Uba uMike
Mabini
office la lapha eOrange Group.
Yes.
Ngaya nayo umntwana. Ubulelana.
How
sayangena eoffice yakhe ngathi indlu kaMambo ngendlu kaMzilikazi. Exchange ama numbers. Libheka izinto ngaswelinye. Bonisane lisizane lapho lireconcile lapho lama difference khona. Hayi bavuma impela kwaba kuhle. Ngayibeka lapho ngathi hayi don't deal through third parties. Deal directly feature. Sathi siqedile indlu kaMambo sesihlanganise indlu kaMzilikazi ukuthi sikhulumisane at that level. Ngasuka lapho ngayabona ubaba uPhulu uDumsana Khumalo abeqoqo
abeqoqo
abeqoqo yini
iqweqo
nakhona ngamtshela ukuthi Mzilikazi kuyadinga ukuthi lina lo mntwana iCrown Prince lisebenze lonke inhlelo lisihambe zonke kule need for reconciliation ngatravela naye ubaba uPaul saya ngamthola umntwana eWest Rand ngapha kuClearwater sahlangana khona sahlangana la indaba yakhona axoxa ukuthi the need for reconciliation. Yes. So inhlelo
ngoba vele laphana ekukhethweni vele kuba khona khona ukuthi ungabi khona ungazwana kodwa into ebalulekile ukuthi abantu bazokuthola sokuvela ukuthi nguye nawo
put ama differences aside
osegijimele esikole kwezokuputha ama differences aside ukwenza ukuthi isizwe senjani siye phambili.
Nangale kuba kuchuma ngase ngiqalile ukuba thinta via abanye abangani bami abase UK engibajwayele ngoba ubaba uSibanda uVodloza bengamjwayelanga.
Okay, so ubaba great.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Otherwise ngabe ngithintena. Hayi ngale kule camp kulabantu engibajwayele abafana noThembani Dube.
Okay.
Engifundela mission. Ngathi hayi ngizothinta lamadoda sizama ukuthi sihlanganise lama
zonke
sisebenze sonke zidle mngani umuntu ziphuze from one country. Yes, so those were the reconciliation efforts. Ngabuya sathi uhlelo lolu masolunje soluzofuna amagqwetha kube le board of legal advisors abaza advise umntwana ukuthi singabi run foul of the law. Sisithole sesigijimisana labo
yes la kule constitution
ngathi ngayisuggesta abafowethu bayibona ukuthi it's a good idea that hayi lo akuze nayo ngafonela ijaji elikhulu lasemathebeleni ebelise Namibia ubaba uMafios Cheda Supreme Court judge eNamibia wavuma ukuthi hayi lo ngizohlala kuleyo committee kuleyo board of legal advisors ngathinta iadvocate enkulu eMathebeleleni koBulawayo ungazi ngoba ese-Australia by then uba uLucas Nkomo ngamtshela ngalolo hlelo layo wa-express interest ukuthi hayi as an advocate nawe uyafisa ukuthi abe ama-legal advisors we-king ngathinta uba uMazibisa uShaba isikolo seJohn labo bonke bathi no they are willing to come forward and work babe ngama-legal advisors enkosi since isakhe isizwe kanje kwaba zinhlelo ezinhle lezo babu umpofu lawo encube siqhubeke kanti sesi fast forward saza lapha ekupheleni kwenkosi ngoba amakhumalo sekwenza after umsebenzi owenziwe ngabantu eyabo i-research eyabo ngeke ngikhulume ngayo angazi ukuthi awufake but we assume they took it into account hlanganisa leyabantu bayivoxa base bephuma-ke embizeni leyana basebephuma legama right yona inkosana i-Crown Prince uBulelani
ingubani
masihlangana nayo kwakuqala masibhizi siphenya lapho research ukuthi hayi ama-experts oKent Rasmussen California oJulian Cobbing and others basikhomba endlini kaNjube eka-Rhodes particularly so ase sibheke endlini kaRhodes lapha ukuthi masipheka yona singayibheka so hayi ngasathi uhlelo lwakithi aluhluphi eFort Hare unobaba ubaba uMachasi professor unjingalwazi professor Machasi ubebhese eFort Hare he just written incwadi yakhe ethi umthwakazi so he was very close to these issues as Ndebele history so ntema ngithinta iRhodes iFort Hare University ngifuna yena nabondiweni but no uMachasi retire ungabe eGoli yeah like nafu ngazana lo mntanakhe ngamthinta wangidirector ke lapha khona ngayafika emzini wakhe ntema ngifika ngimtshela ukuthi hayi uMachasi we've been doing research for the past 2 years or more masiqala umgubho wenkosi uMzilikazi siza abantu beGosford school senza our own field work right ama-arrows asikhomba endlini kaRhodes sifuna amajaha afana nala la uMachasi wathi hayi la majaha awahluphi ndo omunye uvela khona lapha eduze usethakathwana
nguphi lo
ukumilitary ubulelani right
uMachasi vele emazi ukuthi ukhona lo muntu engazange usho ukuthi lento into ekukudala ixoxa
right i-background to this why ubeyaziwa ngabantu ubulelani uyise saphila umncedisi okwamthatha yini futhi engayilento zalale information engayinika amajaha nje banuyibona kule
ubona ukuthi nje izincwadi zokuxhumana kule nje
uyise wamthatha out of wakhe amajaha ahamba naye eMathebeleleni esaphila
uyise ngubani
umncedisi
ezalwa
ngumfana ezalwa nguRhodes yes wahamba naye eMathebeleleni wathi hayi am-introducer ke
em-introducer kubuka
uJoshua Nkomo am-introducer kubomama uThenjweni Sala
kule picture edlala nje around
yes
amncedisi elo baba uJoshua Nkomo
yes yiso lezo sikhathi esiya introducer uBulelani right introducer futhi kumakhumalo Broda Khumalo House omama uLesabe that is why wa-announce ngaphi emzini kamakhumalo ukuthi baphakamisa yena so bangumuntu ababemazi
so umncedisi wafika wathini namanje announce
introducer information ngiyitholayo ukuthi hayi nangu umntwana ngiza naye eNdebele in case kuyenzeka kweminye iminyaka ngifuna ukubheka lapha endlini yami namba abafana
noma nje wena wayengaso first born
noma nje wayengasi first born
angithi Ubukhosi first born kuqhakathekile yini
asibuyele kwaZulu inkosi uGudwin Zwelithini bengasi first born uMisizulu bengasi first born yenkosi uZwelithini umzilikazi bengasi first born
okay
onkulumani uLobhengu bengasi first born
uLobhengu bengasi first born
no kule way inkosi ephila ngayo la umntwana enguye efuna ukuthi athathe ubukhosi
okay
yes so igcine icomplicated isikhathi
okay
ukuthi side kodwa ngesikhathi AmaNdebele engatholi unkulumani babheka ukuthi umzilikazi wetreata njani uLobhengu hayi ubemnikela ukudla phansi engamqhubela directly esandleni abanye bebaqhubela neminye ezinye izizoco zesindebele abezibona hayi if unkulumani engatholakali ke inkatho kayizela ngapha kwaZulu kulamawili bayabhala inkosi akusanga kule break
yebo akufana kithi
hayi kithi ngapha babhala babhalile ukuthi hayi iwili nazi noma songabe belwa bebangama signature kodwa ke okwabo kuizi ngoba akula break
so in general it's not by default ukuthi uno first born kusho ukuthi nguyumeli wenkosi
okay i-action yomzali
yekhomba
yezokhomba
ukuthi lapha
ya ngezwe right so siyibona ke kanjalo inkosi esimathebeleni wala kwaZulu
how
inkosi uZwelithini
wamethula
kuye wamthokoza ukuthi hayi ngihamba nejaha lapha ngenzeka ukuthi one day AmaNdebele afuna inkosi ama-arrow akhomba emzini wami endlini yami so nathi njengabantu besintwini ama-royalists we respect those processes
yes
why kwahanjiswa yena why introduced kumakhumalo Lord Khumalo House why kwahanjiswa kuShaba wahanjiswa kumakhumalo wahanjiswa kwaZulu we have to respect those processes right so he's a grandson of uRhodes Ndebele Kingship. His father not just brought him specifically back to also took him to KwaZulu. And ever since he had been introduced to the broader AmaNdebele groups, he has participated proactively on the community projects and programs. He resigned from his former job as a commissioned military officer to concentrate on the Ndebele causes. As a community development, inkinga zabantwana.
He
resigned
to concentrate
emsebenzini lo. You can't get any better selflessness like that. Ukuzinikela emphakathini. In 2011 ngalesi minyaka iHighlanders ilezikolodo bevala ama-office bevale namanzi
kwakunzima lapha na ngo-2011
yes ngathi mina singenzani ngayakhuluma nabantu base-Ellis Park estadium ngathi i-team enkulu ehlonitshwayo iHighlanders
team yamakhosi
ne-support besicela ukuthi izedlala lapha eJohannesburg idlale nenye team lapha eSouth Africa sifuna ukuthi wenze fundraising raise imali bebhadala izikolodo bevula amanzi avalwe i-council bevule i-ground yabo bekhona ukutraina Ellis Park yangibiza athi ngizokwenza i-presentation haya ngayopresenta hayi uhlelo lwakho labaluthanda ngoba abantu abaningi around babeyazi iHighlanders amanye ama-coaches bafonela ukuthi iHighlanders siyayazi Bruce Crowler bedlalela yona Peter Ndlovu bedlalela i-team enkulu support so bathi hayi ayize kwahlelwa ke salungisa sayenza ama-budget
ngikhumbula idlala
eBloemfontein sayi-flyer from Bulawayo yazolenda sathatha amabhasi la amatsha ayethwele abantu be-2010 World Cup bayithatha bayifaka eSunny site Sunny Park Hotel lapha ePark Town lapho kuhlala khona ama-All Blacks mayezodlala nama-Springboks yahlala lapha i-Highlanders badlala-ke kodwa-ke baluza bathi bathola imali impela ethe xaxa imali ababuyela layo yiyo abakubhadala izikweletu zabo zaphela and enye imali bayathenga ukayentu. Right. Why am I bringing this? Umntwana kulelani, he was a guest of honor. That izwe ama-organizers ukuthi i-team le yaqala umkhulu wakho. Ngangihleli naye presidential suite.
Come and preside over this.
Wayekhona. Ngo-2011, how old was he? Because ngo-2017 ephakanyiswa he was only 32, 33. 2011 wayekuphi? Wayeku 24, 25. Very young.
Yeah.
Bheka uzimisela komuntu at that tender age.
Uthi sizoba umkhulu,
Ukuthi sizosayinto
into yokuba umkhulu.
So sasinaye ke lapho. Right, yiyo i-background. Ufike njani ekuqaleni ke ubaba uMachazi bayethi useThabathwana. Manje sizointroduce kanjani emphakathini wesindebele sathi ayisithi ijaha leli lisese ifishana sese young ungcono sibizi youth ngafonela ngaya emphakathini ngacela ubongani poet
Okay.
Africa athi ubongani sicela i-youth umuntu esiyohlangana naye usesemncane his mid 20s masingamfaka kumakhehla kungenzeka avaleke
Agcina samtholi.
Allergic to so hayi obabani wanika youth yakhe group angazi beyibizani beyithemba lamanguni.
Yes, themba lamanguni ngaleso sikhathi.
Ngahamba la youth yakhe senze appointment ukuthi sizohlangana kwaba kuMachazi lapha eWest kubuClearwater lapha behlala khona. Lelo langa kasezanga ke zabuya zathi hayi sesizoyipostpone to Saturday satshintsha ivenue sahlangana la lapha kwami egcekeni lelo libona phansi kwabuya amakhumbi amaningi iveli yonke yayikhona akekho bayenza i-horseshoe abantu bahlala bayenza isekhe wa-introduce formally to the people of Ndebele ukuthi hayi abantu bathatha le document yakhe bathola ukuthi hayi isithupha bathola ukuthi isifo ngempela sibiza uLobhengule
Bulelani Collins Lobhengule.
Yes. Hayi abantu bagida mpela bashaya indlamu kwadliwa nenyama mpela kwaba kuhle. From there on he has been a permanent presence enhlelweni zaNdebele. He has been a permanent presence. Umgubho waqala lapho he was there.
Konke lokho bakundlovu.
Yes.
Ngoba abanye basuka bekufaka ukuthi maybe ngokulenzuzo ethizene ikhona ayithola. Konke lokho ekwenzayo kuloko. Kukhona inzuzo lapha ayithola khona ukuthi ngiyacina siyekela umsebenzi eqhuba inhlelo lezi kumbe wayeziqhutshizwa ngothando kungela nzuzo yayikhona.
Wayekela inzuzo ayithola ku-military. He was earning a salary. He opted to live working for his people.
Kule salary,
no stipend, no nothing.
Akula salary from him.
Because nikela kubantu Ubukhosi, that's a calling.
Yes.
Akuna inzuzo akuna lutho. Washiya inzuzo. I mean,
a very good job. Yeah.
He was a commissioned officer.
Yes.
Ukhumbule, he was a spokesman for youth.
Okay.
Military. Yes. Why appear on TV?
Yes.
Ekhuluma nomphakathi abantu abafuna ukujoina military. Wayephuma ku-SABC. That's how the military valued him. But was sacrificed about him.
For my people.
Abantu bakayise. Emncane, he was in his early 20s. Sasebenza ke naye from there on. And then the Royal Crown Council.
And uncane bakho lobo, you can't exempt him from also being young ukuthi uthola ukuthi lezi indawo maybe zokujabula ngoba usesemncane lo muntu so it's a guarantee ukuthi vele ngobuncane uzatholakala la esezindaweni lezi zokujabula
young man
yes and there was no one else somewhere else wayemkhulisa ngendlela ukuthi hayi wena uyinkosi kodwa is very young and we cannot excuse ukuthi wayengamelanga ebe ngumuntu la tholakala maybe sendaweni lezi sokumusha ukuthi wayitholakala kwezinye indawo maybe zokujabulisa engekho simeni esiright esihle.
He is a young man. He is a young man.
Yes.
So you don't expect umuntu mayesese young to behave or act differently.
Yes.
Siyabona amaphephandaba lakwaZulu isonezwe likhuluma again inkosi masese or nase-Britain or Prince Harry kunama issues etc. That is a normal situation that you'd expect with a young person because kings are not gods.
No.
They are not Jesus.
Yes.
They are kings. They are just like me and you.
Yes.
Ngamakhosi bayasikola kodwa they are not different from anybody. They are duty bound to enjoy themselves ngempilo nje njengomuntu. As long as bengakhohlwa usacrifice for isizwe sabo. Siqhubeke lapha nayo Royal Crown Council
Ephetho ngubaba
uMathema.
Yeah.
Consisting of the majority of chiefs in Ndebele land. It formed numerous structures, committees, finance committee, cultural, tradition, this communication, you name them. So many, there were more than 12 by my count the last time we were back. They are different, maybe about 6 or 7 or 8, depending on the expertise of my chiefs.
Yes.
Right. In South Africa, babemelwe ngubaba uMagwegwe. Right. It designed its own royal colors. It designed its own royal colors. And it even a color enkosi.
Yes.
Internal. The ama-chiefs now bale insignia yabo. Ama-logo nama-badge. Our Royal Crown Council. Babu umpofu ngemva kwakho lapho akuvule entozaneni lapho na idrawer uqale nephakathi yes onazo thathe lapha ama izinto ezazihleliwe for i-coronation zisekhona
ngiyazibona la
nansi ipress indalithi yini lokugaxa
ipass ukuthi mabengena
amapass
nansi i-Royal Crown Council iba bayidesignayo bayi-approve izinduna zaseMatebele eze-Royal Crown Council ezabo Asha ezama-religious abe-faith
security onogada i-chief ama-chief induna yayizophiwa le bayingena kuday yokugcotshwa kwenkosi so uhlelo ilogo le iphumaphi
ilogo le yacelwa izinduna ukuthi badesignele ilogo for umsebenzi wabo njenge-Royal Crown Council yadesignwa eyakuqala bayijikisa bathi hayi abayithandi yatshintshwa yaphuma isiyiyo le
bayi-accepta le
i-Royal Crown
Council yonke lumbhalo ubona Royal Crown Council all of this
Royal Crown Trust Council
kuyakubona
ubukhosi ngobabantu
ihlahlandlela yes inkosi ngabantu
inkosi ngabantu
ubukhosi ngobabantu
Royal House bulawayo
zonke lezi inhlelo zenziwa i-Royal Crown Council imele izinduna ngobuningi uchairman wazo kunguBathema undunankulu omhlolo right. They issued numerous press statements and circulars explaining the workings of the kingship yaseMatebele land. Examples.
Inkosi yayifunakala lapha ngifuna sike ngoba time and again sikubona sokubandakanyiswa into zepolitiki. Inkosi lana yayifunwa was a ceremonial king.
ceremonial king.
Nothing to do with
Figurehead
politics.
ehlanganisa ebambanisa umphakathi across party political lines.
Yes.
No politicization, no politics of everything, no political party.
Ipolitiki iyasihlukanisa. Ngoba
Politics
mangazwani
divides.
lalo angikuwe.
Yes.
Kodwa ke ubuyimi,
Yes.
ubukhosi.
Yes.
Bungenza sonke sifanane. Sithe sihlukana sise kuma party but inkosi sonke sifona under inkosi eyodwa.
Uyibeka kahle.
Esihlanganisayo.
For Kampofu. Right. So the Royal Crown Council, they released a document explaining arriving at the choice of Prince Bulelani. Ikhona i-document yakhona.
I-Crown Council le.
I-Crown Council.
Isikhipha ubufakazi.
Yes, ukuthi how did they arrive?
Yona isifakazi.
Yes, sidlulile lapha ngikufunele yona. Nansi press statement yaMantungu the daily announcer arriving at the choice of Crown Prince among the Ndebeles. How they arrived, the process yakhona.
Quite a long
Nansi babecele bani
Ubaphathisanyati. Okay. Uthi bakompayile.
Compile naye ukuthi wayebheke inhlelo iprocess yonke eyilani. Right. Okudingakalayo ma umuntu ezoba inkosi faka futhi lelo document. Okudingakala nxa umuntu ezaba inkosi
Qualifications
for being a king yaphuma
4 October
October
2017.
Ayachaza document ye-Royal Crown Council from information department
Royal Crown Council.
Yes.
Uphinde uyabonakala laphana ubaba uPhathisanyathi futhi enkundleni zokuxhumana ememeza esithi ithole ngobulelani ayimemeza ukuthi azayiphinde angazi ukuthi bekuyimuphi
From the ethunywe Royal Crown Council.
Bekuyi lapho bekungumgubho wenkosi wena bengingekho ke
yes
lami bese ngikhoqile ngoba nawe esizweni uyagijima abakuncube nawe impofu uyagijima kufika ezingeni nawe ke uthi hayi nami
ngitshila bani
i-relay stick senginikeza abantu labo bethatha nesiqhubule phambili so babhala ukuthi kufika kanjani enkosini babuya bafake inye ethi Crown Prince Bulelani Q&A.
Question and answer.
Ababe answer yonke imibuzo umuntu onayo. Q&A ikhona.
Honors, yes.
Q&A on Crown Prince Bulelani Dr. Frequently asked questions.
8 October.
We are from Information Department.
Royal
Crown Council. Ya answer imibuzo yonke. Nale abantu abayibuza manje.
Ufunda le isiqephu esisodwa lesi sifuna. Bulelani Lobengula Kumalo is the Crown Prince to the Mtokazi throne. He is the son of Prince Humphrey Mnedisi, son of Prince Patrick Fana, son of Prince Rhodes Mpango, son of Prince Njuve, son of King Lobengula, son of King Mzilikazi Kamachoba. Crown Prince Bulelani Lobengula is a product of an impartial, objective and thorough search and identification led by the chiefs and the General Conference of Kumalos is mandated to do so in terms of our culture, traditions, customs, historical precedents, and practices. Lokhu kuphuma ku Royal Crown Council.
Information department iyayikhupha yonke le ama-press le. Why is Crown Prince Bulelani Lobengula resident
in South Africa?
I answer. Where is Crown Prince Bulelani Lobengula going to come back home? Why I answer. Does Crown Prince Bulelani Lobengula understand our culture? Why I answer. Given the fact that Crown Prince Bulelani Lobengula was born and bred, does he understand our problem? I answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
In most cases, those who ask this question dangerously assume that there is a person out there who knows every detail of every problem in every province, district, ward, and village. No such person exists. Leaders rely on the people to know what would be going on in their areas. If a leader has a communication channel with his people, then such a leader is in a position to fully understand the problems of his people and play a leadership role in addressing them.
There you have it. All these things are dealt with in detail. Our documents are there. where will Crown Prince Lobengula reside stay after his crowning? These questions are answered.
He will
Who
reside
is going to
among his people.
There you have it. Yes, who is going to crown Prince Lobengula as king? Right? They answer all of that. This is a document we have information department.
Royal Crown Council.
Royal Crown Council. Right. A research report on coronation. Now the nation is preparing to coronate Ubulelani. Right. If you go to our declaration document, it set a date, 12 September 2017.
What is the significance now?
Why? Because here was a government in power which was very welcoming to the idea
the government of Robert Mugabe.
The previous regime.
Yes.
It was very welcoming on the idea of the king.
I remember even
yes, and nami mshiye ngibatshele khona le esozweni eHarare ukuthi hayi sengisiya kithi kuyagidwa.
Okay.
Sisenza thathu kwakithi. So inhlelo ezazi progressive, all these non-political.
Yes.
Umuntu nje obuya lapha ubuya in his capacity as umuntu wesizwe. Right. So the nation is moving towards the coronation. Then comparative studies were done. Ukuthi amaSwati, amaXhosa, abakwaZulu, inhlobo labesizambia bagcoba njani. So that process ihambe order. You don't miss anything. Research yakhona was done. The research report on the coronation of King Bulelani. Okay. So it was not just, it was preceded by detailed work, the analysis.
It's quite a huge document.
Yeah, research introduction, the coronation of the Mthokazi kings, which is one. Right,
the document was compiled by
one of the people compilation of it, but remember my document a Royal Crown Council.
Okay, these are the
documents. Yes.
When they will approve it.
So when but AmaNdebele umsebenzi wethu is ngoba the coronation of King Lobengula in 1870 was fully documented.
Okay.
It was covered live onto a journal by Thomas Morgan Thomas.
Okay.
Thomas Morgan Thomas was very critical because he was the personal physician of King Mzilikazi. Mzilikazi died in his hands. A personal physician. Yeah. So he knew the family very well. So he account of how Lobengula gcotshwe kanjani behleli ngaphi. Abantwana bakaLobengula behleli ngaphi. Nahamba abantwana bakaLobengula bayanenwa lapho. Ababekhona ngesikhathi egcotshwe. Hence the argument ukuthi yes Lobengula had kids. Okay. Before the coronation. Thomas Morgan Thomas, who knew the family very well, who was a personal physician for the royal family. He refers to them. Right. So we had a full account of who the whole thing was there. So the coronation would have normally followed that process. Okay. Yes, the way I planned. Which is when you are the Field Stadium. Right. It was initially set for 12 September. Because I think it was my turn like George. See, with our document, it's like the date cited. I see maybe by that. Yes. It's in that formal document. Research on Pagat. Abandabati is cut is can it was like George. Abanye kabesindebe hayi kusasebusika kuyazila izuliana masokufika izulu hayi ekwathi kwenziwe lokho izinto zaguquka kwangena a new regime. Suddenly
remember November the change of presidents.
City constitution thina we interpret the constitution ukuthi the constitution is silent on the issue of kingship. So take maximum advantage of its silence and move forward.
Let the king.
Yes, but bahala abantu abathile bathi hayi kusasebusika kusana izulu bagcina besekla for 3 March so kune new regime.
Yeah, because there was a change in government in November.
Yes.
So if it was done in September,
It's a different story. Right. The date was then set for 3 March. We know what happened in 3 March. It was disrupted.
Yes.
Right. Examples of invitation cards.
Yes.
For that, what we are talking about now. They were already done, paid for by Caesar.
So where other royals invited,
from across Africa.
Institution about the African Institute of Royals.
Yes.
It was represented by its Secretary General Uzolani Mkiva.
It
was seconded to the Ndebele polity to help us with the process so that the process ihambe kahle. Kusasa ingabi abantu bethi khambile ezigwenqe. Ubaba uZolani Mkiva was the Secretary General of the African Institute of Royals. Was seconded to the planning team ukuthi asize abantu ukuthi the standard must be met President of the African Kings organization of African Kings omunye ubaba wase Ivory Coast inkosi yase Ivory Coast was on his way, he was going to attend ukugcotshwa kwenkosi yaMaNdebele. Then kwenziwa i-visit to ubaba uSigcawu.
Okay.
Kapa.
Eastern Cape. Lapha umntwana kulelani abafola under inkosi abafola ngaphansi.
Yes.
Argument sathi you can't lithatha umntwana abantu ayegcotshwa.
Bengakwazi
abajelako. Enye indoda yakithi yasemathebeleni yaseGwanda yakhupha i-private jet. Yathi biza izinduna ezintathu. Kube le nduna yakwaKhumalo. Kwabuya ubaba uMathemba. Wabuya uJahane Khumalo. Induna. Kwakufanele sijoyinwe ngubaba uMagwegwe Fuyani ovelela eGoli. But kasaphumelelanga. But laba beza. Hayi basathi akube le royal family members.
Yes.
Waba khona ubaba umntwana uHlabezulu Khumalo.
Yes.
Naye Crown Prince kulelani waba khona. Lo baba uZolani Mkiva wasilida ke. Saya kwehle Mthatha airport. Babuyo SABC bayikhavile.
I remember yaphuma ku SABC
yaphuma ku TV umabona kude yabona abantu all over the world. Saya ke emzini wenkosi uSigcawu. Sathi ke Ndebele's identify inkosi lapha. That was in about February 2018. Yes. In the Ndebele delegation consisting of members of the royal family and royal crown council visited King Zwelonke Sigcawu to formally inform him of the then pending enthronement of Crown Prince Bulelani Nobengula as Ndebele king.
Yes.
King Xtra welcomed the decision and undertook to participate in the coronation process in whatever way esimfuna ngayo. Inkosi uSigcawu wathi uzobe khona
izoza
naye elida i-delegation yenkosi ezinye zakwaXhosa wavuma impela wajabula impela kwaba kuhle. And then of course the coronation was disrupted on 3 March 2018. Nanso indaba iphelela lapho madoda.
So manje singabantu singamaNdebele singumthwakazi simi ngaphi
manje since kungathi kune disruption mina lapha sokungumbono wami it's my opinion.
Yes.
Abantu akufanelanga sisebenze sibuyele emuva.
Yes.
Siyeni phambili njengezizwe zonke. Ayikho process lapha emhlabeni ongayithola which is sacred. Engathi mina pure. More especially after over 100 years. Singenankosi.
Makes it worse.
Even izizwe ezilamakhosi bakuba ne change over kuyaba lemishumushu ube nokukhombana ngenduku nemkhonto. So nathi ke asiku-accepteni ukuthi yes whatever disruption ekhona it's to be expected. As join izandla siyeni phambili njengesizwe and put the differences aside. Sibuyele kulolu hlelo ngaliqali lolu reconciliation reconcile all these houses. Abantu asukumeni sithatha ama-flight sithatha izimoto sibabize sihlale labo reconciliation. That is my view.
Siyabonga mthakazo omuhle sizwe samzilikazi. I think liyazizwela indaba leyi inkulu inde futhi nanka ama documents. Into engiyithandayo ukuthi bekungaxoxwa ingxoxo esuke ekhanda noma enhlizweni kodwa akhona ama facts. Angazi ukuthi maybe mina sengawaphikisa umphofu sengawaphikisa kodwa khona angazi ukuthi ngiyabe ngilawo iwapi. So sayithethe indawo salivala uhlelo maybe sisazobuya njengoba lapha besithintile ukuthi sesingabuya ngelinye ilanga sizobheka the documents and go through step by step. Either it's the process or the document evela ku Royal Crown Council ukwenzela ukuthi la kusasa abethu abantwana bengathi sezwa kuthiwa njengoba nanku manje ubukhosi bake bahamba balahleka besokulenzwa bethu kodwa manje indaba yobukhosi nansi kulama document. Angazi ukuthi ngiyabe ngiphikisa maybe mina ngiphethe ngoba umuntu ophikisayo ufuna ukuthi aphikise ethwele something esandleni. Ngayi ngiyaphikisa mina ngithi ayisikho lokho okuyikho na mfowethu.
Mina yazi kuba buhlungu ukuthi njengoba usizwa indaba ezimnandi kangaka ezinye bese sithi sikhijimisa isikhathi kodwa njengoba uchilo ukuthi sisazama futhi usimcela babaNdlovu siyazi umuntu ohlala ematasa kodwa siyabonga kakhulu babaNdlovu ngesikhathi sakho sinike sona. Thina sijabulela amazwi akho washoyo ukuthi into ebalulekileyo ukuthi sibe lengqwela phambili sisizwe ngoba isizwe siyakhala isizwe siyalila isizwe singelankosi silahlekile isizwe esingelayo osiholayo silahlekile ngoba kunjenje sokunzima lokuthi sibe wasizi identify ngoba maku celebrate these other events kuba mnandi wena silokubona amankoni celebrate lapha eZambia kube mnandi bevunulele phelele thina ke kunzima ngapi bantu bakithi hlele siyinhlekisa kuyithina umhlaba kwamanje suyasihleka siyadlepana lapha nalapha and enye into we don't appreciate imisebenzi yabanye abantu efana ababuNdlovu la ngingathi uthi into eyikhuluma yebo thina sithi si podcast yabantu siyayendoza sithi thina wena olendlele ubumamile lamehlo uzizwele these are facts that we bring put. Yes, they can be disputed nawe mawulo kwakho nje ubujove chile ukuthi hayi ule okucabanga ukuthi lokuthi but into ebalulekileyo kungani sifaka more effort into destroying than into building. Absolutely. Because if you look at the amount of work that was done here and the amount of effort, the amount of money, people coming in to come and assist us as izizwe zithini manje masingakwenzi konke khonoko siyihlekise emphakathini siyafisa ukuthi uziqhenya. I promise you and I tell you ukuthi the next generations to come if indaba lesingayilungisi thina siyisizwe samaNdebele they will judge us harshly. Yes, they will judge us harshly and bazabe khafulela nasemangcwabeni ethu ngoba sabe singabantu siyigeneration ehlulekayo. So asingathi masiqondisana noma ngumbhalo othile i-research ayithile mayiphazamisile akungabone ngani is a vendetta or engani ukhona ukuthile esikulwayo. Umntwana ngowethu noma engasinkosi ngowethu okunye asilungiseni kodwa singanjani ukungcola kwethu sikufihle sibele ngqwela phambili siyisizwe. Mina yakhuthaza mntakazi omuhle maNdebele lithi ukuthi sokuyisikhathi khona manje iyakhala labo bamkhulu njengoba lapha bakhona babuNdlovu baphenduka ukuthi kanti kwenzakalani kanti sizokwenza yes bebuza ukuthi kanti sazalani kanti namba phela uNdlovu sabajiya kulomhlaba namba uthi wofoncuwe namba labo mpofu benzani ukuvuselela isizwe ngoba isizwe nasisechabalala. Abantu abethu mabebona inkomo bayabaleka mabebona abanye bevulile bathi ayikhathala day namhlanje usumgqokisa njengokwabani ngoba okwakho la ukwazi ukuthi yini okwakho. So bantu bakithi isizwe ngamasiko aso inkosi siyayigcina inkosi siyayifuna
inkosi
ngabantu.
Hayi siyabonga.
Thokoza Muhle sale kahle sizabuya futhi le podcast extra sizolethela indaba esegudwini indaba okukhulunywa ngayo umuntu sayithetha indaba
Thela umuthi.
Nanzo.